So I'm just going to check my email real quick. I have an email from the Department of Revenue, so let's check out what that is. Oh yay! I got my business license. Woo! I'm really hopeful that I can take you along on this journey from literally the day that I get my business license to forever, to when it's a really successful business. So a part of that is talking through the initial business planning stages, but also talking about budgeting. So how much are my startup costs going to be? How much do I expect to have in sales? And then at the end of this next year, walking through with you, reviewing what we planned and then seeing how it panned out. Alright, so a little bit about me. My name is Kiri and I am an office worker full-time during the day and hoping to become a flower farmer by night or morning. Weekends. So I do have some small business admin and accounting experience, so I'm really hopeful that that will play into my business and make me successful at this. So why start a flower farm? There's two main reasons that I'm trying this out. First, I'd like to turn my hobby into income. I've been interested in flowers for a really long time actually. Some of my best memories from my childhood was going to visit my grandma during the summertime, and she had all kinds of flowers. Nasturtiums were her favorite, and she had hydrangea hedges, and it was just like a lot of fun to do all of that stuff with her. And so I think that's kind of where some of this comes from, and I started my own garden a couple years ago and I've just loved it ever since. I think that I have that passion that hopefully if I try to turn it into a business I won't get burnt out on. The other reason is that I'm really looking for a creative outlet in my life. So like I said, I'm an office worker and I find my work technically interesting, but it's not very creative. So I'm hoping that this will be a fun adventure. So let's run through my business plan. My main method for selling will be at a roadside stand in front of my house. I'm hoping to stock that up with 5 bouquets a day, at least 5 days a week for the growing season. And then depending on how much product I have, maybe I will do some pop-up bouquet bars where you can build your own bouquet and it'll be priced by the stem, and then possibly farmers markets, but there's a lot of time commitment involved in that, setting up your stand, selling all day, and then coming home and cleaning up. So with a full-time job, I'm not sure that's going to be super viable, but it may be an option. So I'm hoping my potential customers will be people who are in the community. I live in a small town with about 2,000 people, and there's like a strong sense of community pride here, so I'm hoping that people will want to support somebody in the community who is trying to make their business happen. The other potential customer will be travelers. So I live on an extremely busy road. So during the summertime, the road is super busy, and it's travelers because they've got campers and surfboards, kayaks, all types of things like that on their vehicles. So I'm hoping that I can get some of them to stop by during the peak summer months. I did a trial the other day where I counted how many cars were driving by in a 5-minute period for, let's see here. So I did it on a Monday in fall. So we're not really busy with a lot of travelers. There's still travelers coming through. But on Monday in the fall, in the hour of 11, I averaged 4 cars a minute driving by. And that doesn't include like semis or clearly business vehicles. So that's a lot of potential customers. And then I tried a trial again on the next Tuesday in the hour of 8, which is like a good commuting time to catch people. And that averaged 5 cars a minute driving by, not semis or business vehicles. So I think that there's going to be a lot of people driving by noticing the stand, especially if I have good signage and make it clear what I'm doing. So the customer problem, I think that customers don't have a lot of options for really high quality, unique and trendy floral design. So there are some women here in the community who are selling cut flowers. I think there's 3 other people, and then we have a grocery store, but they tend to do smaller arrangements that are more of like a mason jar style, but there's not a lot of people who are selling higher end, more like design forward bouquets. So I'm hoping that I can differentiate by selling trendier designs, more rare flowers, things that people aren't going to see a lot in the community. So for my pricing strategy, I think I'm going to do a hybrid model of cost plus pricing and competitive pricing. So I'm going to initially look at cost plus pricing, where I just look at all the costs that are associated with that product and then just add the profit margin on top. So I'm looking for a 70% profit margin, but I'm willing to sacrifice on that a little bit if that model turns out that the price is just too high for what the community can take. So at that point, then I would do competitive pricing. So just kind of look around and see what the grocery store is selling flowers for, or other cut flower farmers in the community, and just kind of see what their bouquets are selling for, compare and contrast the quality, the amount of stems, that type of thing, and then see the pricing related to that. So for marketing, I am hoping to be on social media, so Instagram and Facebook. We have a community page for our town on Facebook, so I'll definitely be posting on there to attract people in the community. And then I want to make sure that I have really good signage in front of the stand, but also a really strong brand presence. So I've noticed a lot of people post, like in our community page on Facebook, you know, who's the florist? Whose flowers are these? And people kind of don't know who's selling flowers. And so I think that if I have a really strong brand presence, people will associate, you know, my town's flowers with me. or even the travelers who come by, pick up a bouquet and it will have, you know, my logo on it, cute packaging, and then people will take that home and they'll be like, oh, I stopped by in that town and I just got these beautiful flowers, and they'll know who it was. Alright, in my success milestones, I've got 2, and they may be kind of a reach. Well, one of them may be kind of a reach, but I'm going to give it a try. So my first success milestone will be repeat customers. So I want to see if I can get people coming back. So if I know people are coming back, I know I'm being successful. And then the other success milestone that I'm hoping to reach will be profitable in the first year. So most flower farmers are not profitable in the first year just because there's so much in terms of startup costs. So, you know, getting all of your landscape fabric, all of your irrigation systems, you know, building your stand, greenhouse, all those things that come into flower farming. There is kind of a substantial startup cost associated with that, and then you have to get all of your bulbs, and, you know, if you're buying, you know, roots that are more perennial like peonies or things like that, you know, that's a substantial cost, and you might not get flowers right from the first year. So I'm hoping that I can be profitable in the first year. So I've got some strategies for that, and we'll see if they work. Alright, and my SWOT analysis. So this feels a little nerdy to be doing it, but it's definitely something you should give a shot if you are starting your own business. This is something I learned about actually in one of my management classes. So SWOT analysis, if you don't know, it's your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. The strengths and weaknesses are internal factors, so those are things that you can control about your company. So it's the strengths of your company, your brand, you know, those types of things that you're in control of, or the weaknesses, so your personal limitations or your business's limitations. And then the opportunities and threats are external factors. So those are more like market conditions or conditions about your community. So let's jump into mine. I think some of my strengths of my business will be the strong brand presence. That'll be especially good compared to my competitors who, you know, people don't even know what their business name is. So I'm going to come out the gate hot with a strong brand presence. The other strength, which, you know, thinking about it from like a personal perspective, it really sucks that we live on a busy road, but let's turn that into a strength. Let's monetize that busy street. So it's really great that in the fall, I'm averaging 4 to 5 cars a minute driving by my house. So imagine what that's going to be like in summer, which is the peak growing season. And then the other strength that I'm hopeful for, I mean, I haven't seen it yet since I haven't grown any flowers to cut yet, but I'm hopeful that I will have a high product quality. So really nice stem length, and really unique, beautiful flowers. So some of my weaknesses is that, yeah, I know what flowers are. I've grown some flowers in the landscape, but I don't have extensive farming knowledge. So of course that's going to come with experience, but from the get-go that is a weakness. I haven't grown flowers for a business, so there will definitely be a learning curve there. The other limitation is that I have a small farmable area. So my property is about 2/3 of an acre, and some of that is like woodland. So I don't have a lot of area that I can farm. So I'm hoping to mix in some farming in the landscape, which is a concept that I learned from North Lawn Flower Farm. So you should check out her videos, they're really good. But basically that's where you grow flowers mixed into your landscape setting that you can use for cut flowers, but it's not just grown in rows with landscape fabric. So I'm trying to do that method a little bit to make sure that I can have some more like perennial flowers that I can cut on and expand my farmable area. So the plot that I have in mind for growing in like rows with landscape fabric is about 1,000 square feet. I'm hoping to get my succession planting really fine-tuned and make sure that I'm not having any open areas that don't have flowers in them so that I can maximize my stem count. Okay, and the other weakness, I feel like I'm just roasting myself. No, but you have to do that to figure out, what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are and how you can improve on them. So my last weakness is that I do have a lack of infrastructure. So I don't have a greenhouse right now. I don't have hoop houses. I don't even have a garage. I have a carport with like a small shed portion on it. So that will definitely be a challenge. Okay, so going on to external factors, my opportunities are that there's a growing interest in local and organic products. That seems to be an overall market trend everywhere, is that people want to buy things local, buy things that are more organic, especially given all of the supply chain challenges that are going on these days. So buying local, supporting people in your community, I think is a trend that I can benefit from. Some other opportunities is that there's multiple ways that I could sell my flowers and multiple methods are viable. So I'm starting out just with the roadside stand, but I could have like a CSA subscription type membership if I'd like, go to farmers markets or do bouquet bars. So there's a lot of ways that I can expand my sales avenues, and yeah, so that's a good benefit. So some threats that my business faces is that there is a highly competitive flower market. So like I mentioned, there's at least 3 other people here in my town who are selling flowers, and you can just go to any grocery store anywhere and buy flowers. So that is definitely going to be a challenge, but I'm hoping my differentiation strategy will help me stand out from the crowd. And then the other challenge, or I guess threat is the term, is that I do live in a lower income community. So apparently about 50% of the people who live here are low income households. So trying to differentiate by being a little bit more higher end may be a challenge, but I'm hoping that just the sheer volume of travelers that are coming through, who, judging by the vehicles that are driving by and the huge campers that are driving by, those people probably aren't tight on money, so I'm hoping that I can capture them when they drive by and get them to purchase some flowers. So that is my business plan and my strategy for selling. So I'm hopeful that that will work out, and I hope that was interesting for you to hear. I'm going to walk through some of my startup costs with you, well, planned startup costs. Hopefully it's not going to be dramatically different by the end of the year, but everybody's startup costs will be different based on where you live and your intended, size and market. Okay, just a quick accounting theory background in how all of these expenses work and the breakdown of that. But for a company where you're selling a product to somebody, you typically have 2 general categories of expenses. So you have your cost of goods sold and then your general and administrative expenses. But cost of goods sold is any expense that is directly related to the product that you're selling. So some examples of my cost of goods sold is seeds, tubers, live plants, soil and soil amendments, fertilizers, and floral design and packaging. So I plan to make another video where I'm going to walk you through my seed order and bulb order, and we can do a deep dive into what I'm hoping to purchase. But I'm planning on spending a substantial amount of money on tulip bulbs and daffodil bulbs, which will be fall planted, and then some dahlia tubers that I'll plant in the spring. Alright, moving on to general and administrative expenses. So that includes things like your advertising costs, which, you know, like I said, that's something that I'm going to focus on heavily to make sure that I have a really strong brand presence in the market. So I need to purchase some small tools and some general supplies. So that includes some Felco pruners, a pump irrigation sprayer for the fertilizer, landscape fabric, trellising and netting, irrigation, and like buckets and things like that. And then I'm going to need to set up a website, which is in line with like a strong social media presence. So that's going to have a reoccurring cost. And then some other costs as well are, I'm planning to put like a security system in the roadside stand. So I've got to pay for that. And then I've got to have insurance, and I've got to pay for my business license and associated costs like that. And then another thing that I'm going to spend some money on will be some uniforms, I guess, which will be like t-shirts and sweatshirts and maybe some merch that people could buy if they wanted to, but we'll see how that goes. But you know, I want to have my own shirts and things so that when I'm working out in the field, I guess we could call it, and somebody shows up, you know, it's clear, like, this is what I'm doing, this is who I am. So I'm going to spend a little bit of money on that. And of course, you know, there's office expense for ink for my printer, paper, stuff like that. And then some capital expenditures, I guess, which is investments in like real property or things that, you know, I need, structures that I need here on the property to be able to operate my business. I'm planning to spend $400 on a greenhouse, and I'm also planning to spend about $300 to build my roadside stand. Spoiler alert, it did not cost $300 to build the stand. Alright, now that we've ran through all of those expenses, let's do some revenue forecasts. So my growing season is about 26 weeks long, and my goal is to sell 5 bouquets a day, at least 5 days a week. That is 25 bouquets a week. And then I've got 26 weeks in my growing season, so that comes out to a total of 650 bouquets. I'm planning for an average sales price of $15 a bouquet, but that's just the frost-free growing season. By making that initial investment in those tulip bulbs, daffodil bulbs, those types of items, I can extend my growing season a little bit. So I purchased 1,800 bulbs, which feels like a lot, but it also kind of feels like not that much, because that's just tulips and daffodils. And if I'm selling a 10 stem bunch, you know, that's 180 bunches. And those will be blooming from about March, sometime in March, to maybe the end of May. That's maybe 12 weeks. So 180 bunches divided by 12, that's 15 bouquets a week. So that's actually pretty doable, I think. And the other thing we want to think about too is Mother's Day and Easter are in that period of time. So hopefully I can drive some sales for those dates. So I'm expecting about a 55% profit margin from those bulbs, but to me that lower profit margin will be worth it, just because I'm going to hopefully be able to grab people's attention earlier in the season and keep them coming back for the summer season. So some of the admin stuff I'm going to take care of here in the next week or so is working on setting up my accounting software and my website and getting my logo. So I'll be working on that. And the next videos that I think I'll be putting out will be setting up the greenhouse when that comes, designing and building my roadside stand, and then walking you through my seed order and my farm planning, so the layout and my expected seed starting schedule. So stay tuned for those videos, and thanks for watching. See you next time.